You are now listening to Out of the Blank.
Welcome to another episode of Out of the Blank podcast. Now he's back into the blank. I'm here with Isaiah.
Yeah, what's up, man?
Dude,
Okay.
So what I'm going to do is, for anybody listening, me and him have already did an episode recording probably when I was on episode, I think 160, 130. I never released it because you kept telling me that, wait till
Yeah,
the
I know.
website's up.
I know. Well, that's been delayed right now, and it's never as simple as point A to B. So we had a lot of complications. We're still having complications, but I didn't want to keep you waiting any longer. So
Well, the funny thing is where we're going to record, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the first one that we originally did, me and you, on the tail end of this episode. So if anybody here is listening, if this episode comes out and it's like 3 hours long and you're wondering, holy crap, they talk for 3 hours. It's not that we talk for 3 hours. It's the fact that you can actually look at the ending of the episode is going to be our very first recording. And I'm going off what I remember for our first conversation. So I have not listened to it at all. So last we talked was, you were talking about you were working in sales and you had just got out of school first couple months. So that was where we left off last.
Right, yep.
Best Buy, I think you were talking about dealing with sales, how you were learning how to
Best Buy.
Oh, look at that fucking memory, man. I'm telling you, I remember every conversation.
Yeah, dude.
But
you're on it.
With the motivation factor, but more like having this mindset and kind of what you're coming up to with your website. And we got a little, it's crazy to think that it's been this long and to see where you've come today. So what exactly do you think has changed about yourself?
All right, man. With the times, the pandemic and whatnot, pandemically speaking, but I actually got furloughed from my job at Best Buy for approximately, I think it was like 2 months or 3 months. And I needed more money to fund my business. But it threw me off, like mindset wise. I lost a lot of my habits and, my discipline and whatnot. It just fell apart. And I just had to figure out a way to get myself back out of that. So I started doing estate sales. You know what that is?
Estates, like selling estates?
Yeah, like someone passes away, you got to sell everything in their house. Yeah. So I did that with my business partners. And that was giving us some money to keep everything going. But, I still wasn't where I needed to be. So for me, I have to isolate myself to get my thoughts together and whatnot. So I told my guys that I needed to go, become a better leader, become a better overall person in general, or, this business isn't going to succeed and I'm not going to be able to, direct you guys the right way. So I went on another personal development journey. I'm big on that. And I started reading a lot of books. I think I'm on my 5th book right now. I started, doing my 2 workouts a day. I'm not sure if you heard of 75 Hard. It's a mental toughness program.
Okay.
So I started doing 2 workouts a day. I got my diet right. And I started to feel a lot better. And I got my drive back for the business. And now I feel like it's become like an infectious thing for my whole entire team. I'm communicating better. The goal is clear. Even though we've had setbacks in the pandemic and whatnot, we're still pushing forward. And now I just see a lot of opportunity here.
I've kind of talked about for a while now. I think this pandemic thing, everybody started to realize how much power they had in their own life, not only with the fact that you had to stay home, but this was a great insight reflector on things you were doing, things I would have never thought in a million years that what I had ever reach the potential to have. I ended up finding out, like, I mean, I thought the gym was this thing that was like, obviously it kept me sane. I still do it every day, but it was like I didn't have to kill myself to do it as much anymore. And before, if you would have even mentioned that to me, I would have never even thought. But I think all this isolation, really, people were able to find themselves, which I'm is really just pulling out as the grace period out of it all. I mean, when you feel like shit, you're going to act like shit. You're not going to be able to
Right.
help anybody out. And what I always thought was a little bit different was when we talked a little bit about kind of sensing out people and being able to read them a little bit. I mean, it's very, very hard for people to change. This was a forced
Yeah.
change, and now everybody's trying to come back to a new normal. But like, there are people that seek motivation. There are people that don't want anything to do it. And much like yourself, like me, I turn to self isolate when I get angry, when I get upset. I like to think of my own problems and try and analyze what those could be and try and figure those out. And I think this gave everybody a chance to experience what that was like with the whole social distancing, with all this other type of stuff. And I don't want to turn it on the pandemic, but I mean, like, the world, man, it's very, very, very fragile, and the people that are living in it are causing damage to it every single day. And at the same time, we're no strong suits ourselves. Everybody is pretty fragile once you start coming down to the bare bones of things. We all need a reset from time to time. I'm just trying to figure out what's the best way to be able to have this reset, have this newfound communication, this conversation, or this way of not being pissed off at each other all the time. We live in a
Right.
tense fucking world, dude. I swear
Yes.
to you. I just went by a car crash not even 15 minutes before our conversation, and everyone had their phones out of their car just videotaping and like, holy shit, holy shit. It's like, when did that get replaced with empathy? When
Right. Right.
where was this shift coming from? And I think it was because what this pandemic showed was we're on a shitty foundation and it's time to rebuild on the top of something.
Right. And I'm glad you said that. There's people that are trying to rebuild right now, and then there's people that aren't trying to rebuild that are still, you know, stuck in this place where they're just they just accept what's there, like average. Um, and right now, we need people that are trying to rebuild. It's all about changing your perspective to where you see that in these times, these are the most difficult times in history, I think, in our lifetime for sure. And this is worse than I think the 2008 recession, right? But in these times, there's tons of opportunity. Like you were telling me, your podcast blew up recently, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I
yeah.
mean, it's about the
So,
same as it's been. It's just, I think it's grown in numbers a little bit.
oh yeah, yeah. But if you can just change your perspective to see the opportunities that are presented in this time, dude, you can level up even more um, in a bad economy and in these times than you would in a good economy. I feel like if you look at it that way, your feelings towards life right now can change drastically.
I thought I used to look at it as a mindset of like, oh, you need to change your perspective on life and about yourself to be able to achieve your goals, which I thought was true at the time. But now that I look at it, I'm like, a lot of the time people are just really trying their hardest, but the system is really set up for you to fail. It's really set up to keep you in line. And I think when people started noticing, which is we hear all these people that want to go up against the government, it's because they came out of line. Everybody kind of did when we shut down, and they realized, holy shit, like we were a cog in a system, just mindlessly doing the same thing over and over again and not really chasing after what we wanted. And it's like, yeah, the system is fucking set up for you to fail. The system
It
doesn't
is.
want you to become your own business entrepreneur, even if you finally get the mustered up courage to do so. And when you do end up trying to dive into that endeavor, you have to spend money upon money just to even
Right.
take a scratch into the surface.
Yeah. And the system is built for people to fail, and people accumulate debt over their lifetime to get a house, debt, loans, um, and it's ridiculous. They make it so you have to work most of your life. They leave you little time to work on yourself. It's like you're constantly going, and that's probably the hardest part to get out of. Once you start, you just have to discipline yourself to you're not going to have the energy. First of all, you're not going to feel like doing anything. You got to get up for work in the morning. You got to think about how you're going to get some extra money, but you just got to do it anyway. That's the key to it. You just have to do it anyway. There's no one way for anybody to find what it is that's going to give them the willpower to do that. It's different for everybody. You just got to figure out what that is.
I think when people always talk about, like, I even still talk about it, is the fact of, oh, you can't do that. It's just not in the cards right now. I don't have the money for that. It's like you're really just holding yourself back at some
Right.
points. I mean, it's gonna be an arm and a leg if you want to go travel. It's gonna be something. There's gonna be lines to it, but if you really want to make it happen, you'll fucking make it happen, right?
Right. And dude, you gotta eliminate your excuses, man. Even me, dude, I catch myself making excuses. Like if I'm at work and someone um, you know, does something and it's affecting like something that I'm doing, I'm going to use that as an excuse. Your worst enemy is your best excuse, right? In the book I'm reading now, it's actually called Extreme Ownership. You are in control of everything. You control how you react to things. Even though there's some things that are out of your control, you can still take ownership of that. And, instead of focusing on, okay, this happened to me, let's focus on how can I improve my situation. What's the solution? What's going to get me out of what I'm going through in life right now? And a lot of people, it's hard because the problem is so big. Sometimes it can be distracting, but the sooner you move past it, the better you're going to feel, and the sooner you're just going to level up in life.
Well, you got a fork and you're looking for like an outlet to shove your fork into, like a little
Right,
child. You
right,
know what I
right.
mean? Everyone's doing the same thing. We're trying to find out what our outlet is. And what I really hate about most motivational speakers or most people that are writing a book or doing something, and I thought about, hey, maybe I should write a book called Life is Fucked, because you start to realize a lot of stuff starts happening that's not in your cards. And it's really just the way, it's a path you got to walk, just like Bruce Lee said. But it seems like everybody on Instagram, everybody on Facebook, or everybody on YouTube or something is doing something motivational, either having a really deep conversation about motivation, which, I mean, I don't mind if this one turns into that, but I'm looking at it, I'm like, there are people that are going to want change. There are going to people that want to be motivated to go do something. And there are people that want to do it on their own and really don't want to listen to any of that stuff. Well, it's weird because through, like, what I remember from our conversation is you were the type that appealed to the people that really weren't interested in a motivation. You were there trying to show people like you're just an average person that can see other things too, that can start picking up on things around them and really trying to find your own self balance through a sea of confusion. And I think that can appease to a lot of people because, I mean, what most 20-year-old kids don't know what the fuck they want to do. They don't know where to go. It's always about listening to some person saying, you're going to have life by the balls. You got to grab it. You got to do this. You got to do that. It's like, well, that's
Right, right.
sometimes that's not always the easiest thing. I'm like, let's appeal to people in a way that's like, if you want to, you want to go out and do something, then what the fuck's stopping you? It literally, could be the shortest and best book out there. You don't
Exactly.
need anything more than that. Anything you say to that saying, well, what happens? What about this? What about my job? Okay. Now you're just making a fucking excuse to why you won't do it.
Right, right. And it doesn't take anybody special to, do that. I'm just an average person like everyone else. It's just I don't know when it happens, but it's just there's going to be something that's going to trigger you to want to change. I remember on one of my workouts, I do 2 workouts a day. It's usually a walk and then the gym. But on my walks, I like to self-reflect. And I was like, you know, what makes me happy? When do I feel the most fulfillment uh, in, inside? When do I feel like I'm making an impact? And I was like, well, you know what? At my job, every day, when I sell something to a customer and it ends up solving all their problems or that immediate issue, and they come back to me and they tell me, hey, that was actually a really good product you just sold me right there. That makes me feel good. As opposed to them coming back, like, let's say you're just selling to get money, as opposed to them coming back to me saying, okay, that product, it was shitty, it didn't work for me. Um, how does that make you feel? You're not going to feel good. So that's also, I'm not sure if I discussed this in the last, podcast we had, but that's also why I'm starting, this business here, to make an impact mainly for the people around me. But I already know that it's going to have a bigger impact overall with everyone else.
How are you exactly? Because I remember a lot of our first conversation. How exactly are you now from what you were doing before making a bigger impact? Like you've had to change over this whole year that we last talked. I mean, for me, I definitely became a little bit more cynical about life. Not more like, oh, it's all just kind of bullshit, but more on the lines of like, I'm correcting people that need to be corrected. And that's not me going out of my way being a jerk.
No,
It's
no,
more
that's
like
good.
when I see somebody in a store snapping or doing something or being rude to another person, I just look at them like, what the fuck is wrong in your life that you have to go and do that? You know what I mean? Like, it's
Yeah,
more like just correcting that thing. Cause I feel like what's happening is you're taking your
nobody's
anger.
saying anything.
Yeah, you're taking your anger out on somebody and nobody's correcting you when you do that. And you realize,
Right.
no, you're being an asshole to somebody and you need to stop that because that's not right. Just because you got things going on in your own life. Like I try and keep that in mind. Like, okay, he probably might have some bills he's not able to afford or might have this, might have
Right.
that going on. But at the same time, it's
You're
people.
helping them essentially.
Well, it's people are just really stressed out. I get like it too. I can sense when I'm having a bad day, I'm easier to snap on somebody, but I correct myself and be like, am I going to be
Yeah.
you never know. How many times has somebody said something to somebody and somebody has literally gone and took their own life? Like, does anybody
Right.
keep that into their head or is it more like, oh my God, this person has 13 items in the 12 item or less? Well, fuck, you don't know what that person could be going through. They could
You
be
don't.
one more comment away from just jumping off a cliff.
And I think that's called compassionate thinking. Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, I think about that every time I deal with someone that is going through something. I don't necessarily blame them. I mean, I'll tell them how it is and like, you know, try to help them essentially, and even though they may not take it that way. But you're right, they could have just had like a family member pass away that day. And this actually makes me think of something that I read about recently. It's called um, the 7 Habits of the Most Effective People, and they were talking about how a lot of what we experience today is based on this thing called character ethic and personality ethic. Um, Personality ethic is like the outside. People care about, of course, you're going to care about your self image and whatnot, but internally, if you're not, right, you know what I mean? You're not going to, you only can touch the surface. You're not going to really be able to relate to somebody on like a deep level. And that's not going to make you feel good in your interactions day to day. You're not going to make any real connections. And it says that we need to try our hardest to develop, character ethic within ourselves and follow principles and values and live them, um, and live them in the morally correct way. Hopefully that makes sense.
I think
But that's where
the easiest way is to be genuine. I think if
exactly,
there's a thing that we're not doing as people, and that's conversating, and that's also not being genuine with each other. We care way too much about what other people think of us. We care. I started to notice, like I'll take my own life for example, is the fact of I start to notice I care way too much about what people think. And at one point, I was just like, why the fuck am I doing this? Like, I'm never going to be happy if I'm going to do my own justifications and decisions based on what other people think I should be doing or what other people think is the right thing to be doing. Oh, I can't do this because that'll make me look like this. And then these people will think bad of me or these people this. It's like, the world is constantly in a judge. It's like everybody's a mirror and
exactly,
it's constantly like you're not even looking at another person anymore. You're looking at yourself. But you're not looking at yourself in the fact of you're not treating somebody like you should be treating yourself. You're not treating them like you would, helping them out or giving them a compliment that you would if you were giving your compliment to yourself in a mirror. You're thinking like, oh shit, and you're constantly seeing yourself, but maybe that's why you're taking out your aggression on them. I have no clue. But the factor is, you need to think that sweatpants confidence, man. That's what it is. It's the sweatpants confidence when you go to the store,
right.
dude. I,
The
I
joggers on.
it's really like something like everybody's got a path and everybody's got something to figure out, but it's like I think the main thing starts with how are you not going to be the asshole? I just feel like that's like somebody should write a book on that, like 10 steps not to be a douche. It's just the fact of if you go out and start preaching it, you end up looking like a douche. If you go out and start trying to live it, you end up feeling like one. It's just it gets difficult when you're trying to, sort life out in its own means. I mean, everybody has something about themselves that they don't like, but everybody has something about themselves that they love. Well, why don't we be more compassionate about each other's flaws to the point where it's genuine
Right.
and not just seeming like we're doing it just so you don't hurt yourself?
Yeah, and I mean, everyone cares about their self-image. Like, who doesn't really, actually not care about what other people think about them? But you have to think of it like, what's going to benefit me more in the long run? Is it going to be being genuine here, or being fake? People can pick up on that, and there's going to be a certain point in your life where you're not going to be able to get away with doing that anymore. You're going to have to be genuine at some point. You know what I mean? Um, People naturally um, naturally sense that kind of stuff. So what I've really focused on doing is I'm trying to eliminate a lot um, of the fakeness from my life because now I feel like everyone struggles with how they look to people on the outside. I mean, as much as people say that they don't care, it's just I feel like it's just something as human beings that we care about.
We're judging society. It's just because everything around us tells us we got to judge. Everything tells
Right.
us like, oh, I got to compare what this person has. I got to compare what that person has. Why don't I have this? Why don't I have that? It's like once you stop giving a shit, like I drive a Kia Soul. Same thing I drove last year. We talked, it's
Yeah.
nothing flashy. Do I like a nice sports car? Sure. But I don't care. I don't get upset when one drives by me. I'm just like, cool. Because
Right.
people are prioritizing the fact of just wanting what somebody else has because you don't have it or because it's better than what you have. It's always a flashing society. You wouldn't live in $1 billion house if nobody was around to see it. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It,
Yeah.
it's it, it it's the same thing. I think the best quote I've ever heard was from Joe Rogan when he talks about like people being like sandcastles. You spend all this time building something up, knowing in the end it's going to fall down and crumble.
Right.
That's what literally it is. You should be here to enjoy life and have fun with it at not the expense of somebody else or not at the expense of someone whatever someone was going to think of you. You should just go and do what you possibly can to make your name. But the thing is everybody in the world wants to be remembered for something. They don't want to be remembered for having a booger in their nose or having, a bad haircut. They want to be remembered for building $1 billion business or being the nicest person in the world. Well, factor is that's unachievable. There's no way everyone's going to remember you for that. What you got to be remembered for is being yourself. Don't be anybody but yourself. There's a piece of you that when you fit into it, it's like when you're playing rock band and it's like that, it says that mad groove mode, everything turns blue and you start
Yeah.
going
You're
on this
flowing.
streak.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that's what your groove is, but you got to find what that is. And for a lot of people, that's not an easy answer. I'm lost. I have no clue where that is. I have a medical issue that has come up that has blocked me from doing what I thought I loved forever, which was the gym. And it's life. It's throwing punches, but are you going to sit there and let? I mean, it's the fucking Rocky quote, I guess. Get up and take it.
Right. Right. And what you're doing here is actually really good. I'm sure that you've made a ton of connections so far, and that you've met a lot of amazing people, and that you've got a chance to hear um, multiple perspectives. And that's something that a lot of people don't have right now. I feel like today we're stuck in we're stuck in our own world. There's so much information coming in at once, and I think I talked about this last time, but a lot of people don't know how to react with or interact with each other anymore.
The
Um,
conversation's false.
right,
It
right.
doesn't make sense. You'll be like, "Hey, how's it going?" What? Oh, oh, thank you. It's like, what?
Like what I get that a lot in my job. But I've taken a step to actually try to listen to what they're saying. Like they mentioned, like, hey, hey, I'm having a good, or how's your day? My son won their soccer game. Um, I'm going to remember that. We're going to have a genuine conversation about that because, hey, how's it going? Has just become something that you just say. You don't mean anything about it. You know what I mean?
That's what I
Um,
talk about. If somebody says, "Hey, how's your day going?" and they keep on walking past me, I don't answer them. I just kind of ignore them. It's the fact of if you're walking by somebody, you're not caring what their response is. It's going to be like, "Oh, hey, how's it going?" And you keep on walking. The person's like, "I'm doing actually pretty bad," and it's like, "Okay, cool. Talk to you later," and just keep on walking. It's like, whoo, I'll engage in a conversation with you because I genuinely care. I'm going to sit there and think, and I think one thing most people need to do is just talk to a random stranger. I've encountered so
yeah,
many people doing this podcast and I've reached out to so many, and you'll be surprised at the number of just people that are turned off by me just asking if they want to have a conversation. Because the fact is, we've been programmed as a society that when you open up that door to let somebody in, that it can turn bad and then people can make fun of you and then it's not a good conversation anymore. You end up getting hurt in the long run. And I want to switch
right,
that fucking way of thinking because, you know, it doesn't take much to have a conversation. Anybody can do what I can do. Anybody can do this whole podcast platform thing. It's nothing special, but it's just something different and it's a change up. It's we're constantly listening to specific things that we want to find the information on. Well, fuck. How many times have you entered into a puzzle not knowing when the time or the place is you're going to finish it? It's like entering a maze. What's the path out?
right, right.
Yeah.
And if you're not motivated to have conversation, here's something to think about. All these people that you're walking past, all these people that you see every day, you don't know if that could be an opportunity that's going to change your life forever. And every time I find myself shying away from a conversation with someone, I'm like, dude, come on, are you really gonna, not converse with them because it's gonna make you feel uncomfortable? Um, just go say something, man. And if it doesn't go well, then it doesn't go well. But at least you know that you did everything you could to seize that opportunity. You could be your lifelong partner. It could be a future business partner. You don't know. And you also don't know if your conversation is going to help them with something going on in their life right now. And I think I DM'd you a couple months back, and everything that we do, no matter how small it is, it has a ripple effect. Like our conversation now, all the conversations you've had with those other people, some people are probably going to talk about it with someone else, and that might lead them to think of something that could change the world. It's like we don't know our impact. We don't know the impact our lives are going to have on other people.
Well, it's like the same thing. If I didn't invent Google, somebody would have invented Google. And then it goes down to that rabbit hole, but it also goes to the factor of what happens if you sit there and think that if, oh, somebody else will invent it, then it doesn't ever get invented. I think it's a big mindset of we all just want to we all just want to do something because we've been programmed for so long to learn about heroes, to learn about these people that have stories written about them. And everybody wants that. Everybody wants a slight thing of fame. Everybody either wants money, everybody wants, love, whatever it is. And it comes down to how are we going to get that? Like, how is that going to be achieved? And I think we all have our own tools to do so. But the biggest thing you're doing by hurting yourself is just not being authentic, not being yourself. I hear so many people every day where we talk about sensing somebody in sales or something. I can listen to 150 motivational things and I can tell that they're all full of shit. Someone might be listening to us right now and think the same thing. They can go ahead and think so. But I've listened to so many people and I'm hearing so many things, but I've talked to so many people and I can sense the bullshit. I've just it's really hard to not call it out a lot of times. And it's like, if you keep throwing, how are these people making it? How are the bullshitters making it out there and cheating? Why is the system got to be set up to a fact that if you try and go the hard route, if you try and create something authentic, you don't get any pat on the back. You just get no or stepped on. Wall Street was the same way. People stepped on the throats of others to get to their
Right.
place.
But are they really making it though? I mean,
Morally,
I mean,
probably no.
Right, right, right. If you're a fraud, then you're a fraud. You know what I mean? So I feel like I feel like you choose a genuine route, even though you don't succeed, you're gonna feel a lot better. If you're a good human being. I mean, of course, there's people out there that legit don't care, sociopaths and whatnot. But um, I just feel like if you're gonna go the route of like cheating people or lying to people, then you haven't made it anywhere. You know that, and that's what actually matters is what you know about yourself inside.
Well,
Um,
it's the same thing in Evan Almighty. What Morgan Freeman said: Does God give you the tools to, have what you want, or does He give you the ability to get what you want? If I asked you, would you prefer $1 million right now or a way to make $1 million in maybe 10 years? You might be like me and be like, oh, I'll take the first $1 million, only because it's immediate payoff. But nobody ever thinks about the long haul. It's because I think our mindsets are we need it right now. If it's not 30 minutes or less, if it's not right at this instant, it's not going to ever happen, which makes sense because, it's been proven that, a lot of times you wait, a lot of times things go by the wayside, new trends pop up. But I'm like, I think the ability is better to make that
Sorry, I
money.
don't mean to interrupt you.
Well, I say I think the ability is better to make that money or get that $1 million in the long run than it is just to have it all up front. Because what are you learning if you get it all up front? You learn that you can get $1 million up front. But what do you learn about getting $1 million in the long run? You learn ways
Yeah,
of
the whole
being able to,
process.
yeah.
Yeah, 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 and that brings me to something that is amiss in society today. Is that, dude, we're trained to get it like that, like likes on
McDonald's money, man.
Instagram.
That's what it
Yeah,
is.
yeah. Hey, I'm not supposed to eat this today. I'm going to eat it anyway. Or um, like I actually had a situation where someone at our job, they took another job with more pay, but less room for growth in the long run. So, I mean, of course, it's going to help you right now, but later on, they're going to be like, wow, I could be making six figures right now if I would have just stayed at this job for the next 5 years. Where at the job I just took, you're capped out at 40,000. You know what I mean? So instant gratification is a huge issue nowadays with our social media apps. We want a reaction right then, right there. We want approval right then, right there. We want the money right now, um, and it just gets to a point where it starts to affect your happiness. You're used to that hit right then, right there, and nobody's thinking in the long run that they're just going to get run over, and that's where you fall into a depression.
I mean,
So
you've put in so much work from the time we've last talked to now, still trying to get the site up and going. But I mean, I've seen you make strides recently on social media and stuff, at least trying to make a presence.
yeah, and I just couldn't. I know how much work it's going to take, and I really want to lead my team in a way that they can succeed as well. So I put 100% effort in trying to fortify myself mentally, physically, and improve our connections with people outside of the business, like third parties that we work with. I answer my emails way faster. I set up a morning routine. Um, I started to post a lot of stuff that I've started to learn here, and I'm just, I'm not going to sit back and let my life run on autopilot. Um, it's just not something I'm going to do.
That's a really fucking scary thing when you figure out you've been living on autopilot.
Right.
And I
A lot
think
of people don't
that's
even know it.
because the risk factor thing has just been told to us that that's just not the way to go. It's always better to play it safe and play it comfortable. But once you figure out, like, you step outside of those lines, and I think everybody realized, like with the pandemic, there is no fucking safe and comfortable. Everybody is, your life can change just like that. And I think that should have opened up to a lot of people to do what the hell you want. Take more vacations with your family, spend more time doing whatever you think is a priority to get what you want in life, which is going to be happiness. I mean, you lived mindlessly wondering, some people did, what happened to the last 20 years I've been at this company? I don't remember a fucking moment besides birthdays, maybe. I might have missed a few. It's like, fuck. I wish life was easier for people to get that, but it's just not.
Yeah, and dude, I don't know what it is about the world today that puts us in that autopilot mode, but I'm telling you now, I didn't even realize that I was on autopilot. I mean, maybe it's different for other people, but I felt like this is how everything was supposed to be. Um, you know, I went to college because of somebody. I didn't even go to college for myself. Um, my uncle actually he is a veterinarian, and I wanted to be a veterinarian at first. Then I switched to wanting to become a doctor.
Why'd you
But
switch
when I
from
got
vet? Why'd you switch? Because
why I
mine, I
switched,
wanted to be a vet, and then I saw how the doctor takes their finger and sticks it up the vet, or the sticks it up the dog's ass, and I was like, no, 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 I'm done. I don't want that.
so my main motivation was money. So I saw the pay scale from vet to actual doctor, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna go for doctor. Um, and when I got to college, of course, I was motivated for a time, and I made good grades and whatnot. But dude, money is not enough. I'm telling you, money is not a big enough of a motivation to get you through. Um, I was literally, I was in my last semester, senior year of college. I was thinking about dropping out, man. I did not have the ability to keep that motivation just for a pay raise. And to to put that in perspective for somebody else, I feel like you have to make money that you didn't have before. Like depending on where you are, maybe you have $0 in your bank account and you make like 10K, and you're like, okay, I have a lot of money now. Okay, think about how you feel. You feel good right now, but then you realize, at that, I know a lot of people realize this when they make millions of dollars, but at that, smaller scale, you can also realize the same thing, that money's not going to be the end all be all for you. There's more to life than just money. Um, and that's why I switched. It was literally just to pay the money, and also, doctors in society are looked at as these prestigious, smart people.
They're just people.
So, right, and they're just people, and I just realized that that's not going to be enough for me.
I think when you start looking at, everyone talks about when you're an adult, or you look at adults like, oh, they have all the answers depending on their age. They have as much information as you do. We experience something that a lot of them have never experienced with the pandemic situation. I think once you start looking at people as people, stop looking at them as something worthless, or stop looking at them as something high and prestigious. Just keep everybody on the same playing field. I've done that my whole life. You treat me with respect, I'll treat you with respect back. And I think it shows. I think it's a thing where it's going to keep you humble. I always talk about Bill Gates has the best idea when it comes to spending money, which is the fact of, even though he has billions of dollars, he still gets upset if something's overly priced.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You have money not to go and blow it. I mean, if you want to blow it, sure. But honestly, I would much rather save it, because it's just the factor of, like, I don't need it to be happy. I'm trying to find happiness right now. I honestly, to be 100% honest with you, I hope I never find it, because trying to figure out what it is a fucking journey in itself, dude.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I see what you mean there. As much as I say that when I get here, I'm gonna be happy, but if I were to skip there, I wouldn't like now. Talking to you right now, it feels good because I know that we're like-minded, um, based on our conversation. And this feeling that I'm getting, this is part of my journey, this is part of your journey. And the feeling that I'm getting right now is the feeling that only the journey can provide. Um,
Well, it's
it's
genuine,
like,
dude. It's just a conversation. It's two people connected and actually just sitting down shooting the shit. If we were sitting here doing like a full on like trying to write an essay at a job or trying to do something or answer questions, if we worked together and we were doing something with our boss in the room, it would be so autopiloted and so only what they want to hear. It wouldn't be anything that would be disconnected. And that's why I tell people when they come on here, be fucking free. I want people that are listening to be a fly on the wall in the room of what the conversation is going to be. You know, when you're out having a beer or you're sitting having a coffee somewhere, if you want to make it interesting, make it interesting. You said something earlier that really rings true, which is the fact of when you don't have a conversation with somebody in public, you're denying yourself maybe a new pathway or a new thing.
Right.
We're constantly surrounded by each other. We're constantly overlapping in our paths in life. You might uncover information that I never knew. I had conversations with people where their friends, their best friends would message me like, I never fucking knew that he was into that. I never knew that she did that. It's like sometimes
Right.
you have a
Okay.
conversation that is just it's specific for you to hear. It's something that you would have never thought in a million years to ask someone super close to you. And I think that is what's important. Why would you deny yourself what I would call secret information? That's a life hack. You get secret information out of people when you just say hi.
Exactly. You're not going to get that information if you're not, being genuine. I mean, that's just the way it is. There's so many times where if you don't ask questions, you're not going to get an answer. And I think that's a big statement right there. I don't know where I got that from, but it might have just popped in my head. But if you don't ask questions, you're not going to get any answers, and whatever answer you get might be the answer you need. So you're right.
Well, as
You're
much as
denying
I want it
yourself.
to be a life hack, like if you stuck a fork in the frosting of an Oreo, you can dip it in your milk easier. That's an amazing life hack. But this is one that more of the lines like it's so obvious that nobody has even figured it out yet. We're totally looking for answers that are so secret and hidden away when the ones are literally right in your face. And what steps are you taking or are you gonna take that is gonna take you to where you want to get?
Okay, so for
Big
me,
question. That's a big one.
yeah, yeah, that's a good question. Dude, I I've just I've literally I've decided that I'm going to devote my life to getting better. Um, and I mean, people may think that's too serious. I don't know, but it is. I feel complete when I'm, getting better. If you're not getting better, you're getting worse. Um, you know, I like to read. Um, I like keeping myself in line. I don't like to overindulge as good as it makes me feel at the moment. You know, just me improving. That's really all I need is knowing I'm doing what I need to do, and it's not really a complicated answer. I mean, my steps are keeping myself disciplined. Staying healthy. Um, developing relationships. Um, Making sure that I'm in a position where I can help my friends and family. And that's really it. I mean, I feel like people overthink that sometimes.
I think people always talk about self care and talk about these things. I'm not a big believer in self
Yeah,
care, only on the aspect of I think if the world wasn't so corrupt or it wasn't so filled with people always making judgments of others, we probably wouldn't need that relaxation or reprocessing for ourselves. But when you're not in the mindset able or you're just violent or you're doing whatever and you're not able to be happy about
right,
yourself, you're never going to be able to give advice that helps out a person, which is never in turn going to affect the world. You don't need to change everybody's life. You don't need to do whatever. You just need to be there for who you feel like you should be there for. And what I mean by that is when a friend comes to you and wants your advice, wants your guidance because they're lost, you giving them that advice in turn is going to help them give advice to somebody who needs it. I always think back to my buddy who the reason why I started the podcast when he called me that late one night and I'm at the spot where he's at when he was on top of that roof right now. And I'm thinking like, how did I come up with that information to give that to him when I was still trying to find myself like I am right now? And I called him up. I did a whole reversal to him. I said, "Hey man, like I'm kind of feeling how you're feeling. I'm a little bit lost right now, and I'm wondering where to go." And he goes and gave me the same response I gave to him. It's a matter of we're all kind of trying to sort shit out. And it seems a lot better when we're experiencing it right now. So it's more about looking to the other side and trying to figure out what's going to matter in 2 years from now. Where am I going to be 3 years
Right.
from now? Where am I going to be at this spot? Work to where you want to be and you'll get there. I think life is going to throw a shit ton of shit at you. It's going to suck. It's definitely going to beat you. Like you're going to be the one car in the parking lot with all the bird shit on it. But be you, man. Don't look for some magic answers. But when you start to feel inside of yourself that you're doing something right, I guarantee you that's the key in the path that you need to be taking.
Right. And I wish that I could, there was a way to transfer a feeling to someone else, you know. Um, so I mean, I feel like you're gonna recognize it eventually, but there's only so much I can say to you or so much I can do, so much I can say to get you there. It's up to you to get there. No one else.
It's like what I mentioned to you in the first podcast, and I know I brought this up, was that you have the keys to your own car. Nobody else can
Right.
drive it but you.
Exactly. And once you understand that, you just you got to go on your journey, man. Just got to go on
So
your journey.
is this journey of Isaiah going to be going into this website? Hopefully, come on.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
gonna force you to do it at one point.
Okay. 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 You want me to talk about the website here?
No, I mean I want you to make it. For we've talked about it twice, but like it's always in
Oh,
the works. You got to
look,
have it
look,
going, bro. Come on now.
look. The
Don't do this
website
to
is
me.
literally it's 98% done. Um,
It was at
it,
90 when we talked.
yeah, but here's what's going on. So we have to get our label approved. We have to follow FDA regulations. And our partner has a legal team that goes over the label. I've submitted the label 6 times, and every time it comes back, there's something wrong. So then I have to go to my guy who does the designing of the label. He has to redesign it, and then I send it back in. Now, the website developers we have working on the website, he needs product pictures, with the label on the product. And I can't put the label on there until we actually get it from the people we're working with. It's literally just that one thing.
You need to
But
disguise the label as like a middle finger. So it's like a silent thanks
yeah,
for denying me all these times.
right. But yes, it's in the works. But I didn't want to keep you waiting. I wanted to. The website really doesn't matter. Um, what matters is that we're able to have this conversation, and I've been looking forward to this since our last talk to see how it was going to be. I remember last time we started and I interrupted you. Remember you needed to do the introduction? Yeah. So um, it's just good seeing you and how far you've come so far. And I've been keeping track of everything on Instagram. I'll get a little laugh here and there. And it's just, it's amazing. It's
I
crazy.
appreciate it, man. It means a lot. And first of all, to see that, I saw when I started seeing you start posting again after a long time of being away, I was like, oh shit, here we go. It's about this. It's about to happen again. And I know I feel like I'm pressuring you about it and stuff too,
No, you're good.
but it's more like I know that the way you've talked about it, it's gonna be a good feeling when it gets made, dude. Like you're gonna feel
Yeah.
pretty ecstatic.
And the vision really is, dude. The vision for me, and I just recently sat down one morning and I just sat there and I was on my computer and I was like, okay, I'm gonna plan out my life and where I want this business to be and see it in my mind. And I was telling my guys, I work with 2 other guys, and I was like, guys, this is where we need to get to, man. We're gonna be, on stage. We're gonna be the teachers. I said, we're gonna have, this many stores. We're not just gonna be online. I even went as far as to be among the top in the industry of holistic medicine. I mean, the vision that we have is insane. We want to impact as many people as possible while bringing values, while actually living values that you see that you don't really see in other companies. Like some companies that you go to, their employees don't have the values of the company. It's not going to be like that with what we're doing.
It's about hiring everybody that is literally, there's people that are qualified for a job and there's people that actually want to do the job. You're hiring the people that want to do the job and you're caring for the people that actually need the help, not just there because they can afford it.
Right. And then that actually brings me to a good point here. College degrees versus skills. Man, college is going to be dead soon. I'm just being honest, because
I've said it multiple times. If I was owning a business, I wouldn't look at the person with the multiple degrees. I'd look at the person that's passionate about doing the actual job.
Dude, and I don't know if I told you the story, but when I actually went to apply for Best Buy, I was going to send them my just super dumbed down resume, right? And I go to the first meeting and they put the resume in front of me and it's my college. It has all my research and everything. And my heart drops, dude. I'm like, dang. I thought I lost a job because of that. I couldn't get a job for so long because of my degree. And like, I straight up told her I submitted the wrong resume. And just that right there, it just goes to show that if you have the skills over the degree, you're almost guaranteed, in my opinion, to get the job with the skills.
Skills pay the bills, bro. Skills pay the bills.
Yeah, skills pay the bills, and I don't know how I can stress that enough. But if you're thinking that you have to go to school, unless it's a specialty, no, you don't have to. Just work on your skills. Like, just learn how to do something really well. There's tons of material out there. You got YouTube. You got
I fixed my car in its driveway, went through YouTube. So
right.
That was pretty awesome.
So yeah, I mean, there's lots of ways to get it out here. I mean, I know that it may not seem like it right now for a lot of people, but like you're doing a podcast. Hey, I mean, it takes some time out of your day, but we're both gaining value, and it's you love doing it.
I definitely feel charged enough to run out into the middle of traffic, like my parents always warned me not to do.
Yeah. So, dude, I'm just happy that we had a chance to talk and that we got to this point. And I, the reason that I just decided, even though the website wasn't ready, the website in the long run to me doesn't matter for the podcast. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I felt like before, when I was delaying it, I feel like it was something I needed. I don't know why, but dude,
you don't need any validation, bro. You validated yourself in a conversation with me, and I think that's the most important. Everybody gets to see how authentic and genuine you are, and it's going to be pretty awesome to hear yourself from basically like a year ago at the ending of this episode. So we're wrapping it up here, people. We're wrapping it up here. I just want everyone listening, if you're going to stay tuned, this is more like the halfway mark to the next part of the episode, which is going to take you to when our very first recording was. You're going to hear our change. You're going to hear our shift. And this was us a year later. So thank you so much for listening. I'm going to make sure I link everything of his in the description below to make sure that you can all find his work. And also, thanks for watching and listening and just hearing us out.
And on the record, in a couple years from now, I'm going to contact you for sure. I mean, on record, a couple years from now, I might be in like I plan on being somewhere way, way past this. So I just want to have that on record here, and we're going to go back and watch this video, and we're going to be like, wow, that's crazy. So,
I want nice cheeseburgers from like a fast food joint. I don't even care. I don't want Ruth Chris because I'm not that type of girl. I just want something easy and cheap where we can just sit and actually have a good discussion.
Yeah, that'll work. So yeah, thanks for having me on the show, Robbie, and I look forward to it again.
And thanks for listening to this episode of Out of the Blank. And stay tuned for the original episode. Well, welcome to another episode of Out of the Blank podcast. I'm here with Isaiah Rushin.
Yes, sir.
So Isaiah, tell me a little bit about yourself and what do you do professionally?
Okay, well, I just graduated college a couple months ago. I went through a couple different jobs. Now I work in retail, and I'm a business owner. There's a story behind that I like to tell people. But that's about it right now.
Now, when we say retail and being a business owner, what exactly do you work in retail?
So retail, I work at Best Buy.
Best Buy, giving you the
Yes.
best options on 65-inch TVs for like $500.
Yes, that Best Buy. So
What types of things it's dealing with the public, so you probably got a gaggle of stories of the types of people you run into at Best Buy.
oh yeah. And it's really I really enjoy the job because you never know who you're gonna meet. I meet new people every day, and the best thing about it is I don't know who these people are. So I could be talking to like the director of Disney or a stuntman for like a popular movie or something, and I would just have casual conversation. And usually I find out by the end that I'm talking to somebody that's, in the video industry or something. Somebody.
I invented mahjong. Excuse me, what'd you say?
Yeah.
You invented what?
Right. That's how it is. You're like, whoa. But I really enjoy that aspect of it. And it's really helped me, learn how to sell.
What do you mean exactly? What types of like departments do you work in with Best Buy? Are we talking about cashier? Are we talking about like selling? There's always that computer section in Walmart or something that you go towards, and there's always a dude trying to, hey, why don't you buy this TV?
Right. So I'm on the sales floor. I sell computers, Apple products, different things. People tell me what they need. I give recommendations, and I try to help them out.
This is actually where it kind of falls in with being a business owner as well, because you have to have the ability to read people.
Yeah. And, I was really bad at that. School doesn't really teach you, from my understanding, from my experience, from when I went through college, doesn't teach you how to interact with people at all.
No, it teaches you the fundamental things, and also teaches you what social groups are. The whole fact that there's athletes and all these different types of people that can find themselves in different groups, never truly expanding out.
Right. And from that, after I graduated, I developed a lot of social anxiety. And I wanted to get rid of that. So I made it my mission. And then when I tell people this, they're like, okay, wow, my intent was to get rid of that social anxiety. So I threw myself out there every opportunity that I got. And I don't know if you've heard of Andy Frisella.
I have.
Yes, but he said the best thing you can do is get a job in retail. You can't avoid it. So you know what? I went and got a job in retail. I was scared shitless, but I did it anyway.
Yeah, I was always afraid of stepping on stage and being kind of the front stage of attention. I was more happy cracking jokes in the background and being the class clown from a distance. My guidance counselor said you need to start doing more classes, like speech classes, things where you have that feeling, you get that feeling. I remember
Right.
I took a speech class in college, and I was dreading it the whole time going up driving to the school, and then right before, like, when they're like, I was last, so I had to sit through and watch everybody else's speeches, and I'm like, the first thing I wanna do, I wanted to get done out of the way. I wanna be the first one going up there. We had to do a speech on fucking Hot Pockets. Well, at least I did. Everybody else picked a logical one, like, "This is why bees pollinate." I'm like, "Nah, I'm doing Hot Pockets." So
Yeah.
I,
Okay.
I had to basically give this 25-minute speech where I was telling people all about Hot Pockets, all the research, all the things, and then the wonderful things about them. And I'm like, how am I going to do this? And we got to incorporate a PowerPoint, which I found was very, very comforting, because I was like, I'm going to stick to what I know, and I'm going to stick to trying to be funny. And a lot of people had lists of things that they were going to say, such as like a structure, like, well, did you know bees only populate, and then they give off a certain fact or whatever. Me, I'm like, I'm going all improv. I'm going all in here, and I'm just gonna wing it. I'm gonna wing it like a man, mostly
Yeah.
because I forgot a lot of my tools and stuff. But I found that
Right.
when you put me on the edge, kind of like on my toes, is where I work the best, kind of being
Yeah. You produce your
spontaneous.
best work.
And so I went up there and I literally on my PowerPoint, I had nothing but Kate Upton eating Hot Pockets all over my PowerPoint. Like it was already distracting the audience, which took a lot of the attention off of me. But I'm sitting there selling at them. And then I found out a lot of the information I had studied got soaked into my head that I was able to bring out in such good segments.
Yeah. So they probably thought you were, on your game.
I got a fucking F. I got an F on the project. But the weirdest thing about it was everybody in the class said I deserved an A.
Oh, wow.
They
Okay.
said it was actually one of the best speeches and the flow of it was amazing, but the teacher thought I was making it a joke and I really wasn't.
Okay.
I was
Gotcha.
trying to do it in the best persona that would show my thing. She was like, "You didn't take this project seriously." And
Yeah,
then
you were trying to.
away.
I feel like you were just trying to make it entertaining.
Yeah,
Otherwise, people would just zone out.
how many times do you watch a speech and somebody's selling something, you're like, "Oh shit, I don't feel like listening to that."
Yeah. Right. Right. So you got to do something about it. Yeah. Uh, what I really wanted to. I know you've seen my Instagram page, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to talk about what got me to the way I think now, and I'm sure that you can relate because I listened to one episode of your podcast this morning, and it was pretty good. I enjoyed it. It was the one with the forklift driver.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, and he was going down this path where, you it's like you wake up and you get out of a box. So during my last year of college, right? I found out about trading. I do it as a hobby now, not as my main thing, but it introduced me to that, that mindset space. Personal development, improving every day. So after I graduated, I decided to take some action on what I wanted to do with my life. And, I met a lot of people. I went through some hard times, had some really low lows. And then I decided I was going to start this business. And one thing I noticed is I changed so much that it became hard for me to relate to the people I was used to hanging around.
Mostly because you felt like you developed faster or you matured a little bit past where they were at.
Right, right.
I can relate to that because I mean, I went through. You want to talk about bullying and stuff? I went through bullying as a kid, where I actually picked up my one thing that's a bit of an addiction now. I am a fitness freak. I've gone to the gym every day for 7 years and have not missed a day. I go on Christmas. I actually worked out at 2 o'clock in the morning, and I work out for 2, sometimes 3 hours a day. It's my
Right.
sense of peace, my sense of overall becoming, but I've honestly at times felt reliable to it, mostly because it's like checking your phone in the morning. There is
Hmm.
no not going to the gym for me. There was a blizzard outside this morning and I still drove to the gym. Especially in my shitty little Kia where it shouldn't be driving in anything. It's barely suitable to drive in perfect conditions. But I felt like when I was a kid and I was experiencing all this, I was progressing and maturing in a different way that a lot of people weren't at my age. Mostly I was isolating myself. I was finding that I was thinking a little bit more clearly. I was starting to observe
Yes.
more. I was starting to, cut out a lot of stuff from my life where I felt like my friends weren't at that level I was at yet. And now that I'm in my 20s, I'm seeing my friends now hit that point where they're like finding this deep kind of understanding. Their jokes are not all about, you know, making fun of each other. It's more about like real things now. They're starting to think a lot like how I thought at a very young age, which is it was difficult at the time to go through and experience, but I wouldn't trade in any of
Hmm.
those moments because it helped me become the person I am today.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And I mean, I'm a gym freak too, by the way. Um, it definitely helped me grow. At first, it was lonely, because it was just you at the time. But I had a couple people, they started to, fall in. They started to, understand. We still joke around and shit. Talk about different things. But I'm glad that they were able to become a part of my journey, and I was able to become a part of theirs. Because now they're actually my business partners. So I'm not in this alone. Um, and I'm sure you've had, projects. I'm not sure how you came up with this podcast, but I'm sure there's people along the way that influenced you to do what you do.
That's why the main point of the start of this thing, I've said it before, so I won't risk everybody else listening to me repeating myself. But there was a point, like I completely just made it work, gym, school, work, gym, school, work, gym, school for like 3 years. I mean, I wasn't really hanging out with friends anymore. I had like one close friend, but all social connections, everything like that was totally disconnected. People were around my age that were going to bars, trying to, find another way to party, go out and seem like they're living a life, but really drowning out a lot of the sadness too.
Right, right.
I look to people as guidance. I look to people, especially some person at my work. His name's Darrell. I call him my black dad because he has literally pulled me out of the biggest spots in my life where I was like, well, if this is what life is, then like, what the fuck? Like, this is like, you get those moments. It's not to be like,
Yeah,
oh, you need help. Oh, you need medicine. Oh, you need this. It's like, no, I need someone to fucking talk to.
right, right, right.
And it doesn't have to be as far as going into a therapist. It doesn't have to be as far as doing this. It just has to be going and finding the communication that we used to get back in the day when we talked to a loved one, when we sat and ate dinner, or a friend when we really needed it. We needed that guidance. And for a lot of us, probably much like yourself, when you're isolating yourself or doing these types of things, only person you have to bounce back ideas off of is your own mind. And sometimes that can be one of the biggest motivators and obviously one of the biggest obstacles as well.
Oh yeah, and of it's every night. Um, I'm not sure if you do this, but I kind of go back through my day, and like sometimes I'll find myself um in the moment of that day, I'll overlook it, but I find myself laughing later about something that happened that day. Um, and I find that those moments right there are things that I really want to start paying more attention to, because I didn't notice them before.
Yeah, getting a better perspective too. I mean, when you overlook kind of how your whole day went, whether it was like, I always talk about like throughout the day, you receive what we call stress fractures. Much like a glass window, you're getting little tiny bits of glass or micro fractures into the glass. And then eventually, if you keep pushing those down and not kind of looking back at them, you're going to shatter your window.
Right.
You're going to break down. You're going to have a terrible point where you just break out, like you can't hold it in, creates a lot of aggression. Um, if you look at those things though, like laying down on your bed and just recounting all the stuff, the events throughout the day, it's very, very critical into how your next day is going to play out too.
Exactly.
Everybody gets the occasional, like they'll be laying in bed and then they'll think back to like elementary school when they did something embarrassing or like, oh shit, like, that
Yeah,
whole type of
yeah.
thing. It truly brings more meaning into when people say words hurt deeper than like physical things, such as like, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never hurt me. That type of thing. That words leave
Mhm.
scarring though. I find that sometimes the most impactful things is not a broken arm or something, but sometimes the words that someone can leave behind that stay, because that shit stays with you. There are
Yeah.
times I look back now from when I was bullied in school and I look in my like mirror or something when I'm at the gym and see a six pack, and I still can't get past that barrier of when I was, going through my overweight phase through school. And it's like, this is why I keep doing it. And this is why it keeps me motivated to go. It's beneficial and I wouldn't trade it in for anything, because if not only like I've been for doing it for 7 years and stuff, I put up a picture on Instagram recently, not to show off, but to show consistency, but to show
Mhm.
how these types of incidences that we have are things that structure us if we let them.
Yeah, and I'm a firm believer of things happen for us, not to us. And that sounds simple, but when you really think about it, like what got you to this point, what got me to this point, is things that happen in our lives, and those, looking back on those stress fractures, you know.
So how
So
does how does this lead into your business?
right, so I so it had to do with where would I find my purpose? Where would I find fulfillment? I thought that going to school, getting my bachelor's and doing all that, and like for my parents, for the people around me, would make me feel a certain way. And picturing it in my head at the time I was in school, and it did kind of, I was making the grades. You feel good when you make good grades. But when the time came and I graduated, it just lasted that one day, and then everything went back to feeling the same. And that's when I knew that this is not for me. I don't really want to continue my education. I feel like my time could be better invested elsewhere. I'm not saying it's a bad investment, but because I still got the experiences. But there's a couple times where I tried to do something, and when I did it, I wouldn't feel a certain way. So then we get to the business, right? I thought about building a business, building a culture, giving people jobs, um, giving people direction, and then also, starting a podcast later on down the line. And I put myself in that position. Like I really visualized, I sat there and I really thought of what it would feel like to be in that position. And it was like it filled up this void that was inside of me. Right.
Now
So
you created this podcast as like a sense of empowerment and better understanding into one's life, correct?
yes,
So more
yes.
like motivational type speaking as well, trying to show people that like there's a different way you can look at things and there's a better way to get things started for yourself.
Yeah. And I wanted to use and I haven't started the podcast yet, but I want to use my life experiences for other people to learn from.
I definitely think there's a giant market in podcasting for sure when it comes to storytelling. See what makes movies and makes like a lot of things like books or something that are real, the types of stuff that give real experiences, the types of things that show real inflection and real insight into someone's head. Much like when you're listening to a book on recovery or anything from a recovering person, for someone that's an addict or something that's going through something, it is so much more believable if the person is coming from a point in their life where they have experienced what that person is going through. You know how hard it is to sit there and listen to some person telling you, "Oh, you got to get clean, you got to do this, you got to do that." And it's like,
Right.
what have you experienced? "Oh, I've never done that before." It's like, "What? Like how am I supposed to listen to your words if I can't believe them because you've never
Right.
experienced it?"
Right. And if you're not, I mean, if you're not coming from a place of like true experience from what you're talking about, you can convey the message, but it depends on how well you understand it and how well you can relate to that other person if they're gonna, actually listen to you or not.
Which makes it more believable.
Yeah.
So, what exactly is the concept behind your podcast besides motivationally speaking? Like, what types of things do you use and say to be able to, besides your own personal experiences, but to show, I guess, the inner meaning to it or the moral of it?
I read a lot of books. I try to take as many lessons from those books and I try to apply them in real life and see how they work for me. And as I do that, I develop my own understanding and ideas and those experiences and I share them.
Okay, so give me an example here.
Like at my job, um, I went there so I learned about intent, right? I went there with the intent to develop better social skills, to learn how to sell, and to move up. And I'm doing exceedingly well. Um, I every time that something happens where it makes me back down, I'll catch myself in that moment and then push myself forward. And my manager and everybody's told me that if I keep it up, then they've never seen anything like it. And then it's like I manifested something I learned in my life. And I'm not sure a lot of people do that. They'll just learn something and they'll never use it.
Well, I definitely think that fear is probably the one thing that holds us back from what we truly want, or that great moment of, I mean, profound greatness. I would say. I mean, I've heard from so many people that are, they're in a bad position, they're doing something. going to something that is terrifying to them, such as a new job, starting anew, having that whole brand new change that comes into being. Also, like you can relate it to bungee jumping. Like how many times you get to that fucking edge and you're like, I don't want to do this at all. Like
Oh
I
yeah.
am totally regretting this decision. But then once you take that jump from people I've heard that have done it before, that are just like, there's no better feeling in the world. I wouldn't replace it for anything. It's that whole fear leading up to it, this thing that we build in our head. There's a
Right.
thing called future warning or future, it's like foreseeing things. I'm not talking about seeing glimpses into the future, but we're we start to create these problems in our mind. There's a form of therapy behind it. I went to school for psychology. I don't remember exactly what it was,
Okay.
but when it understands the fear kind of keeping us back from whatever, from what we truly want. When it comes to this future kind of feeling that we get, like, oh shit, your future worrying, your future, you're thinking of shit that hasn't happened yet,
Yeah.
things that
Right.
haven't even they might not even happen, and it's keeping you from so much of the many things that it's going to be what you want to do, such as like, well, I can't go do that because this might happen, or I got to worry about the next bill or the next bill or the next bill. I'm like, but that's holding you back from what you need to be focusing on, not things that might be happening or
From what you want.
yeah,
Yeah.
it doesn't make any sense, but it seems like in this mindset, in this world that we live in, and a lot of what's going on now, especially with mental health, which I'm a big advocate for, um,
Oh yeah.
people are suffering because they're worrying about things that might not ever happen.
Right. And that's one reason that I used to be terrified of heights, man. I remember I went to the Grand Canyon and I wouldn't go near the edge because I always pictured myself falling off somehow, and it was pretty secure. You wouldn't fall off unless were standing right on the edge or you jumped off yourself. But that feeling I got just from thinking about something like that was enough for me to stay away, and I could have seen the view was beautiful. And, I could have seen a lot more. I could have enjoyed the trip um, a lot more if I would have just, overcame that fear. And I wasn't thinking so far ahead of the negative things that could potentially happen.
I went to the Grand Canyon and we took the extra, like the little trip you get on what they call the Sky Bridge, where it kind of comes out a little bit off the Grand Canyon, so you're like
Yeah.
hovering over it. And
Hmm.
they make you put this stuff on your shoes, like little booties, so you can't scratch up the glass because you're standing on
Yeah.
glass. You want to
Right.
talk about fear? That's fucking fear.
Oh man, I don't even know if I could do that now.
I was doing that and I was stepping like I was holding onto the edge screaming, like I got halfway out and I was like, I want to go back. And like they're like, you can go back if you want, but it's the same way if you went forward. It's just coming back around in a loop. I'm like,
Oh my
well,
God.
how do I get off of this? So like you just gotta walk the rest of the way.
Yeah, you got to go.
But it was that feeling too, like if I would have missed out on that opportunity. I mean, my cousin got in trouble because he started climbing his ass down the Grand Canyon. Like most people, you get to see those photos where they take pictures on the ledges and they're hanging on, and it seems like, holy shit, what are you doing? That's nuts. What happens if you fall? My cousin's like, I'm
Yeah.
just gonna climb down this thing. He gets like not even halfway down, not even close. He gets probably like 10 feet down, and he's like, I don't know how to get back up. I'm scared. Somebody help
Oh,
me. I'm like, well, I don't know what to do. I'm not
right.
helping you. I'm sitting in the middle of the Grand Canyon right now. I'm standing off where the food's coming out, like the restaurant is, because I'm too scared to look over the edge.
So how do you get out of that one? Just
They ended up
curious.
having to get a bunch of people down there to get them out.
Okay.
It was very
Okay. Gotcha.
embarrassing. It was not. It was not fun. My grandma was pissed.
Oh no, dude, I bet.
She
I
was like,
bet.
"Are you shitting me? I went to get food for 1 minute, and next thing you know, you're climbing down the Grand Canyon." He's like, "I thought it was a good idea." I'm like, "Oh God."
You
I,
know, that
if
reminds me.
what? Go ahead.
Oh yeah, that reminds me of when I was a kid. Um, I used to be very reactive, and I used to react in ways that would put me in situations where I couldn't get out of. And I'd be like, "How the fuck did I get here?" Like, and who's going to help me out? It gives me that same kind of feeling.
Well, just like our parents and grandparents said to us, I mean, you're gonna learn. Like you're gonna learn. You're gonna learn. I never understood what that meant. Like, what do you mean? Someone drop a book in front of me and tell me not to do something? It was the whole fact of When you're a kid, you're fearless. You don't know anything.
Right.
That's why you're fearless. You just don't know what's going to happen if I do this. What's going to happen if I do that? You don't have any influences to give you second that second thought that holds a lot of us back. I
Hmm.
mean, nobody ever told me that if I stuck a knife in a toaster, it was going to shock the shit out of me. And I didn't learn until I
Right.
was like 12 years old. My toast broke off into the toaster, and instead of unplugging it like a smart person would do, I decided to stick my knife in there and try and get it out. I learned that the fucking toaster can shock you. You know,
Right.
those types of things, those are powerful motivators as well. I feel like a lot of what happens now is you start seeing, like, with technology, all these stuff that's creating a lot of anxiety. It's giving kids insight, like movies, like, oh, if you do this, if you fall, you'll break your leg. So then nobody's going to want to try and experience anything. I'm like, sometimes you need that to happen. I
Oh
learned
yeah.
from breaking my arm off a trampoline. I learned that, if I'm doing dangerous stuff, something could happen, consequence towards it, you know? I
Yeah.
feel like there's a lot to learn, and that's where kids, like, a lot of people are like, he's insane, he's a daredevil, he's all this type of stuff. I'm like, because he has the inspiration to never fear anything, never let anything hold him back, and don't miss out on one of those moments.
Hmm. And you just mentioned social media. That is a big one that's giving everybody in the world a voice, and that's not always a good thing because people aren't saying what they really want to say because everybody can see it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and it creates this fake fear, this thing that if you say something, it's going to offend somebody, it's going to do something where nobody can agree or nobody can do this. It's like, why can't I just make my own kind of idea out there? If you are afraid to
Right.
express yourself on the feelings that it's going to hurt somebody else, then maybe what you're thinking or what you're trying to express yourself is something you need to look at more.
Yeah. And on the other side of the coin, um, people with influence and stuff like that are saying things that they really don't, like in their heart behind closed doors, don't believe. You know what I mean?
Just to create a false perspective or a false narrative of who they are.
Right. And that has like a ripple effect. So it's influencing how our culture is as a whole. And it's not the way anyone really wants it to be. You ever going here?
Yeah, I do. I mean, what exactly did you study to get this mindset? Did you take any psychology courses, any philosophy courses? It feels like a lot of what it means to be socialism or these types of things that deal with like philosophy and stuff seem to kind of correlate.
So for me, my passion has always been in science. But when I think in college, I took critical thinking, I took ethics and stuff like that. After I got in those courses, I found that some of those ideas I enjoyed, thinking about dissecting, and I took them. They align with some of the stuff I already believed. You know.
So are we
Um,
talking biology?
oh no, not just biology. We're talking philosophy, psychology, um, different things with the way people think. And I'm not sure where I started to think like this. It's kind of like a blur. It was like a slow transition to where it's like from when um the last it's like when you convert like a certain thing to another thing. At what point is it, different? You know what I mean? At
Yeah.
one point is it yeah.
One point, like
Where
when everything kind of comes together, it seems like all the cogs fit into a piece.
Yeah, so where does like the real change occur exactly in that moment? I feel like it was like extended. So I can't really tell you when I started thinking like this. I just feel like one day all the pieces went in the right directions, and then bam, that's what
Yeah,
it feels like.
a lot of people actually correlate that to like a spiritual awakening as well. When it comes to finding God or something, a lot of people talk about this one moment where it all clicked and you're like, holy shit, that's what it
Oh
was.
yeah.
It could be a kid being born. It could be a certain experience. Like I had one with a butterfly flying across the road and it just got missed by a car. And I was like, that's all of us right now. We're literally
Right.
just getting missed by that car. And then I realized like a minute later, I was like, what happens if the car would have hit the butterfly? Then I would have had a completely different reaction.
And you know what's crazy is you want other people to experience that same thing that haven't experienced it yet. And because there's no way you can understand it unless it happens to you, you know?
Do you feel like a lot of what people come off like, when you see an older person, like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what you're this. Do you think it's just because it comes from the mindset of like we talk about mental health and all these types of things? You're seeing kids experience anxiety and depression disorders at the age of like 8 and
Right.
12 years old. And I always hear someone go, oh, they don't even know they don't even know what that is. They don't know the real problems of the world. I'm like, no, but they've got a grasp on what problems are.
Yeah. And also the problems of the world in a way are changing. You're
Well, they're becoming influenced into a kid's mind as well. See,
yeah,
when I took psychology classes, I'm in no way a psychology major. I had my associate's degree, if anything. But when it comes down to just being interested, taking all the psychology classes that my college had for me at the time before I could move on to a 4 year, I was I was so interested in environmental influences to the point where I got so dived into psychology and all these things that now every time I come across somebody, I start analyzing them. I certain things like, why is that person so upset that he's in the grocery store with 12 items and the person in front of them has 13s? Is it because they're not following the rules, or is it because something else is going on in their life? And then you find out that person walks to their car, and as they're unlocking their car, they have a spare tire on their car, and they realize, oh, your life is probably going through a shit spin right now, and that's the only way you can choose to get some of it off your back.
yeah, dude. And that's crazy. I think about stuff like that too. That's why when certain things happen to me throughout my day, especially at work, I don't take it personal. I try to listen to everybody and what they tell me, and then sometimes people, uh, they might be a little rude or something like that. But you know what? I keep my calm because you don't know what they're going through in that day. It could just be that you're the person that got their energy. You know what I'm saying? Um, things like that.
I definitely think there's a lot that kind of correlates behind it, for sure. And expressing it, I think, is the best way. I think it is a good way to kind of get a lot of your frustration out, but I feel like people do it in the wrong sense. Instead of bringing it
Yeah.
out in a type of sport, bringing it out in a sort of stress relief activity. Like I express my anger, I express my stress through going to the gym, mostly because a lot of people try and vocalize their things as well, which is a good way to do it, but it's not beneficial to anybody else around you. This is
Right.
why a lot of people, like when you look at them, they try and express their anger out, like going with a punching bag or doing something where they isolate themselves. Obviously, the best way of expression is just by sitting down and talking with someone and releasing that stress. That's why a lot of
Right.
people turn to therapists, but you can get that same motivation and that same kind of spark or that overall feeling of completeness if you just talk to a loved individual or someone that you truly know is going to actually sit there and give you the time of day.
Yeah. I mean, in the most valuable thing that they can give you is their time, and that you can give them is your time. And having someone to talk to, like, and now I have my friends, um, and like that support system is something that has helped me. I'm sure it's helped you just move forward and help you conquer some of the tough situations in your life. Um, but overall, when I feel like everyone should experience that moment where you're
You're put in
you
a
you
corner.
know you have that.
Every
Yeah, yeah,
everyone
yeah,
has to experience that. Everyone has to be literally a rock in a hard place, that situation, because that's where you're gonna see your most growth.
exactly.
It
And
sucks to say that, but like I said before, when it comes to the scars and the types of things, the painful rocks in the road that you have to experience through life, Bruce Lee has one of the best quotes. God gave you this life because you're strong enough to walk it. Whether you're religious or you're not, your life is your own. Nobody is going to be able to fit into your shoes, Isaiah, and nobody's going to be able to fit into mine. They're crafted
right,
out perfectly for you. All the things that happen in your life, you're like, oh, my life is crap. Why can't it be like this? Why can't it be like that? You're
right,
given
and I
things as obstacles to try and pursue past them.
You know, when I hit my lowest low, um, in the moment, I didn't see how it could, benefit me. But the crazy thing is I feel like with, the mindset that I've tried to, that I've developed, that it's going to be really hard for me to get back to that bottom point. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because
Because
it feels
I,
like
I know how to deal with it.
well, it feels like a lot of the time, for at least a lot of people, there's not the light at the end of the tunnel, or the light at the end of the tunnel is just too fucking far and you can't see it.
Hmm.
I talked about this before. In 1 month, I had 3 tires go out on me. This one was the front left, and the other 2 times were the front right. It was not a fun month for me at all. I spent literally over $1,000 in towing and all this stuff just trying to get my car replaced, to the point where I was like, I'm saving up so much money and shit keeps happening where I
Yeah.
keep spending it like it's not even showing anymore. And it took me a while to get out of that mindset, mostly because when a bad
Mm,
experience like that happens, you're like, well, fuck it. I don't even want to go out and do anything anymore.
right. Um, and from the vibes that I'm getting from you right now, I would assume that you're a spiritual person. I'm not sure
I,
what your religion is, or
I just try and be open minded when it comes to everything.
okay, that's good. That's good. I understand that. At least you're not one of those people that are like, oh, we're about to bring, God into this. But for me, um, I feel like, whether it's God or a certain entity, um, that as long as I'm trying my best to make the right decisions, the decision I know are right in my heart, that I'm going to end up with the result that I want in life. And that's where, my faith comes in, and like how the universe works, and how I've become to understand the world around me.
I think
That's why I never feel stuck.
when you were talking about before about these people that we meet in our lives that give us the best guidance, when I was calling about getting a tow truck for my car when I'm sitting on the side of the road, basically 15 miles away from my house, I'm like, shit, like I got to call these people again and tell them that I need another tow truck to come out and get me. And I talked to a lady and she's like, oh, I think we have you still on record from last file. Hold on a second. And she pulls it up. I'm like, yep, that's me. And she's like, all right, well, we're going to be sending it out for you in 20 minutes. I got my head down. I'm just like, I can't deal with this shit right now. Why is it always
Yeah.
happening to me? And I literally said to her on the phone, I was like, you just ever have one of those times where it seems like, what's the point anymore? Like, why are we still living this? And she gave me the best answer ever. She
What she
said,
say?
she said something. She goes, you don't seem very religious. So where I would turn to God for this, or turn to just having belief, she goes, life shit, but it is what you make it. And she goes,
Right.
these things happen, but they're gonna pass. And I'm like, thank you. Like, I mean, at the time I was still very frustrated. I was just saying really thank you because it helped me kind of whatever, get her off the phone. But as I'm sitting there waiting for the tow truck, which the guy was like an hour late for, like I ended up sitting in my car for like almost 2 hours. And I'm just sitting there and like, I have my car on trying to give me a little bit of heat or whatever. But I'm just sitting there thinking, I'm like, this shit's not going to matter 10 minutes from now. This shit's not going to matter an hour from now. This shit, however long or however big the problem seems at the time, with more time, it is going to pass and it is going to get better, which I think a lot of people need to keep that insight into their head. You know, I had, when I was at the mechanic, I was like, can you guys get this done as fast as possible? I got to get to work. And they go, oh, you want us to get it done as fast as possible. You hear that, guys? I'm like, I'm so sorry for the way I reacted. I was dealing with a traumatic thing and I'm really sorry. Please take your time with it. And I was ready in 10 minutes. It's the whole way of changing your perspective on things. I think when a problem is so overwhelming, it's hard to look past it. And I think people need to consider looking past it, even though how complicated, how difficult it might be at the time.
You see what you did there? Like people like me and you use an experience to like, communicate something to me. To to, convey a message. And that's very, very powerful. Um, when I see someone having a tough time in their day, like the lady told you, like I remember I was in Barnes and Nobles one time, and I was walking, and this lady, she had like this cart full of books, right? And somehow all the books fell out, and she looked really frustrated. I went over there, helped her put the books up, and I looked her in the eyes. I said, "We all have those days." And she told me, she said, thank you so much. And just, that's all she had to say. The look in her eyes that she gave me after I said that told me everything that I really needed to know. That what I said to her, that we understood what was going on, um, you know,
Well, it's
what
having
was going on. And
it's having a rationalization and all, obviously relating to people as well too. We all go through bad days, bad months, bad
right,
years. Um, it does. I know I don't want to quote like it gets better, but if you sit there and sulk in your shit, it's gonna consume you. You want to rise above it. I remember when my car literally just broke down after like the third time. I called someone I thought was going to give me like a motivational thing, like kind of like a pep talk. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. I got the completely different answer. I got the whole, well, life's shit. What do you expect? And I'm like, fuck. Like this shit happens. Get over it. And then hung up on me.
right.
I'm like, damn. Like seeing it like not affect them or not them going through it where I needed like a hug or I needed like that just talk to, and then finding it later with someone I would have never expected it from. It's all that critical thinking. As much as you want to act like you're so like, this is how I'm high and mighty. This is how I think of this. This is how I think of that. This is how I get over this. This is how I get over that. Even those people, they have their moments where they need someone to talk to them. It's not about motivationally speaking. It's not about doing this. It's not about doing that. It's just understanding and having compassion towards other, which I try and do my best with the podcast. I mean, I try and have conversations with everyone and be as open-minded as possible
Right,
because we all have a connection in this world. We all got something that attaches us to something that we're interested about. We're all unique, and at the same time, we're the same. We act the
right,
same on the basis of where social media and all these types of things and trends go. But when it comes down to the things that truly make us our own individual person is the amount of experience and the amount of compassion and our interests. These are the things that I find that are unique that I truly, truly, honestly want to uncover. We all have something to say. So why not take the time to just have a conversation?
yeah. And um, what's really baffled me, what's really made me think is when I got this job, I've talked to hundreds of people now. I've gotten business cards, different things like that. But the vibes that I get from social media sometimes, it's nothing like what I'm experiencing in reality when I talk to these people.
How
And
how
that has been
how
one of the,
how so though? How so?
people on social media are always, sometimes they're angry about small situations, or just, the things we see on the news and all that. When I talk to someone, and when I talk to most people, they're not as angry as, what the news puts out sometimes, or, they're not as concerned with all these different things. They don't bombard me with this information. It's just a genuine interaction between me and them. And we just, share our experiences. Like you said, we're somewhat all the same, but social media makes everyone seem so different. You know what I'm saying?
Because it hides people
It's like
behind a screen.
yeah, and it's like a disconnect.
It's the whole thing, like the whole fact, like I could be having a conversation with you, but if I'm not right in front of you talking to you, it for a lot of people, there's no ramifications onto what they can say. They can just sit there and shit on you or do whatever, and they can write a comment on Facebook or something towards you, even not even completely knowing you, because it personally or that interaction that they have, it's all behind a screen. There's no sense of empathy or connection with one. You don't get that humanistic feature, that thing like when you're in a store and someone talks shit to you, they have something wrong with you. They have something they don't like about you, whether your style, whether there's something you said or something that this means to them. But no one just outrageously comes up to you and goes, huh, stupid or
Right.
dumbass or something. Nobody ever does anything like that because there's real interaction there. There's real connectivity. Where behind a screen, somebody does something, you're like, idiot. You can easily comment something without truly even knowing the person and what they're going through.
And you know what? I recently saw this somewhere. What do you think about this? They're banning snowballs.
Like the snow cone.
No, no, snowballs. Like you know how you used to snowball fight when you were little?
They're banning that.
Yeah, I saw news. I
Oh,
forgot what it was. It was banning snowballs, right? And that's what I'm saying is like it's and I don't even think they got banned for the reason of like they were really offended. It was somebody who wasn't really offended, but just had to, say something.
I
You know what I
think
mean?
it's through the act of the way people view like elderly people or adults or media, the way everything gets represented now, they see that as probably an act of aggression. When I start saying if you're gonna ban snowball fighting, you're gonna you're basically gonna create another outlet, and that's gonna be guns. That's gonna be another stupid way for people to express themselves in anger. Because now I know that's a big leap, but where these types of things happen, I did a paper in psychology on video games and violence and how it directly correlates. There's no correlation between video games and violence, only on the concept of if you get addicted to something, such as video games, you develop an emotional response and a mental stimulus to it as well. I used to play
Yeah,
video games 24/7. And I remember at one
same.
point, people used to be like, we need to take the Xbox away. Parents would do that to me. I would get emotionally upset because that was my one thing that I had to rely on because my parents worked 2 jobs. So I was the only one ever home by myself. And I learned to structure myself off a video game or structure myself off the connectivity I got with my friends through it. Now, that's where video games can cause violence when you become an unhealthy or addicted personality, I guess you would say, towards them or
Hmm.
relationship with them. But when it comes to playing Grand Theft Auto, I ran over hookers in Grand Theft Auto like crazy, but I've never ran off or ran into hookers on my everyday life because
Right,
where
right.
people say, "Oh, that just creates someone to go shoot up a store." No, what creates that is
No.
suppression. When you start suppressing a kid, when you start telling him he's worthless, he's doing this, you're taking things from him and never letting him truly express himself, such as with a form of art, such as with something you would consider taboo. I'm not saying he goes, "Hey, I want to shoot up a store." And you're like, "Yo, you can't do that." That's not what I'm talking about. When you start showing them the world is this hateful like place where you can't do anything, you can't be yourself, you can't get anything without doing something so dramatic or so drastic that gets your name in the paper, then that's when it happens. You create suppression starts to create aggression, and that's where you start seeing
Hmm.
riots. That's where you start seeing a bunch of people that just want to vocalize themselves and just want to be
Right,
heard.
right. Okay, now I see what you're saying about it creating another outlet. Okay.
And
Um,
it can obviously be done in small means, but with snowball fighting, it's meant to be a thing of aggression. It's meant to be like a fun form of aggression. It's meant to be a fun
yeah.
thing you're supposed to do. It lets out anger. I don't know how many times I would take a snowball and throw it at my brother's face, and then him end up getting pissed off and maybe finding a nice ice chunk somewhere and throwing it at me. That kind of sucks. But those are fun things you do. My parents
Yeah,
go, "Hey, you shouldn't be throwing ice at each other." I'm like, "But you shot bottle rockets at each other. Like,
yeah.
you
And
literally aimed in
society,
their eyes."
yeah, and society has become so, to me, soft. Like, and it's kind of ridiculous to me because I grew up. Um, I don't know when the transition happened, but my friends and stuff that I grew up with aren't in that category. I feel like because we still fuck around, we still mess with each other. Um, we probably do we do things that if you probably did it to someone that didn't think the same way, we probably get sued or some shit. But I don't know when this transition happened, and I feel like we need to change it. Um,
Well, there's a point here where you start when we let in, I think it happened probably a few years back, but when we started being more, I guess, accompanying of other things, such as like, oh, well, that's bad. That hurts somebody. That hurts one person. Did anybody truly clearly look if that was actually offensive or if anything like that, or did you just start banning things? Because once you start banning things, it opens up what, Dave Chappelle said it best, what we call hate culture. It
Oh
starts to,
yeah.
when you start talking about things that, oh, it's going to offend somebody, oh, it's going to do this, oh, it's going to do that, it makes it difficult to start rationalizing, where you just start banning everything. Oh, ban this, ban that, ban this, ban that.
Right.
Oh, if you're going to ban that, I can ban this. When you start doing that, it starts creating this place where it's like, what are we doing? Like that had no intent of being offensive. It wasn't explained properly. It wasn't looked at before you even chose to ban it.
Yeah. And hopefully it doesn't get to the point where you can't say what you want to say. Like, I don't want to be banned for saying like something like fuck, or, you know, for saying something that I want to say, but today you say something and it just gets blown up, dude. Like, I was looking at a joke that this rapper made, and people started, attacking for just a fun joke. You know what I'm saying? And it's
I've
insane to me.
I've said for so many times that it shouldn't be stigmatized as it is. So many people, when they relate cursing to anything, like they'll be like, "Oh, you're angry, you're angry." I'm like, "No, I dropped this
Right.
and I reacted and I said shit." Those are I use them as forms of stress relief. Cursing, just saying fuck, whatever. I don't stigmatize it as bad because I don't stigmatize cursing. Obviously, you don't drop language when you're at a family gathering or something. You know the
Yeah.
time and place to do so. But if I'm comfortable and I say shit, I don't even look at it, because it's uh, you experience so much stress throughout the day. If you just drop a nice curse word or a nice thing, not
Such a
even
release.
it's a release. It's a major form of therapy. That's why I was like, if I was a therapist, I would bring on a form of cursing. Just be like, just curse. Just
Yeah.
incorporate that small thing. It doesn't have to be like, oh, F this, F that, F this, F that. Just say fuck once. When something that, something happens to you, whether you're like, you drop your groceries on the way in or something that simple, just drop it. It doesn't mean it has to be so stigmatized, but we choose to let it stigmatize. And when we start banning things like, I remember my town, they banned things like cursing. You couldn't curse in certain areas in the boardwalk
Oh,
because it was going to
what?
offend other people. I'm like, you're then banning freedom of speech.
Yeah.
You're banning people's
Yeah.
forms of expression. Some people choose to let that be their expression tool. Be like, shit, I can't believe that just happened. Or, it's stuck in amazement. Or you see a good movie, you're like, that was a damn good movie. That's a
It's just
form of
expressing yourself.
exactly. And I believe when we
Yeah.
start eliminating that, we start creating a world that is it loses connectivity to a lot of things.
Hmm. And a good example of this would be, I'm not sure if you've worked retail before, but Black Friday week, Black Friday the day, it's absolutely insane how many people you have to interact with at one time, and sometimes it can be overwhelming, right? So you have to express yourself in some way. I remember I was running around that whole day talking to everybody, so I just went in the back room, and dude, I said fuck this, man. But you know I was gonna get through it. But me saying that made me feel in a way like I released something. You know what I mean? It
Yeah.
took some of the edge off.
Well, we all need a form of release. This is why hobbies are so beneficial. There's so many other things and so many outlets you can look towards for stress relief. I think more people need to, instead of looking towards social media, I talk about maybe bringing back some of the lost arts like wood carving, glass blowing,
Oh yeah.
knife making, all these primal things that a lot of people you get to see on Instagram or something that a lot of people are starting to do now, such as building a puzzle. Do something that just takes your time and helps you relax and kind of center in on a lot of things too, especially critical thinking as well. I mean, a
Oh
lot of those
yes.
hobbies are big critical thinker things.
Yeah. And that's a big part of why I like to read and learn from different people's experiences in history, because me doing that is my outlet. It's like a hobby for me. Um,
It's a form of release too, kind of learning. Each is their own, whether it's writing, whether it's making a movie, whether it's making a song to express yourself. Everyone's got their own outlet for it. And I think that's what
right.
makes us truly inspiring as people as well.
Right. And then another thing here is now a lot of people have developed an outlet for not an outlet. It's almost some people, the people on social media that are using it as an outlet, I feel like are expressing their, true feelings. I have no problem with that at all. It's just when you use it as like sort of, you think you're using it as an outlet, but you're not expressing how you truly feel. It has the opposite effect. It's almost like you're putting all the energy back into yourself.
Yeah, we're definitely, I think we create a lot more problems in our life. Like we're talking about when I was saying before about future thinking. We create more stress in our life than what is needed for sure.
Yeah.
Well,
And then,
Isaiah, I appreciate you doing the podcast, man. I mean,
oh
I,
yeah,
I,
no
I
problem.
definitely think you need to get yours on there as well. I mean, there definitely needs to be a little bit more of people with better insight. At least, not, I wouldn't say better insight. I would say people coming from a point where they can they can help bring in another opinion or another voice that can
Oh yeah.
obviously help out in situations where a lot of people feel like they're the only one experiencing something.
Oh yeah. Thank you for having me, Robbie. This was my first podcast ever, so this one will be one for the books. When everything gets there, I make sure I plug you in.
I want to make sure that like you get a plug here too at the ending. Tell everybody where they can find a lot of your work. Obviously Instagram, but what's future to come and everything as well. You know, the mindset, the whole everything. I want to hear it all.
Okay, so the podcast is going to be called the Creed Porter Mindset. It's not available yet, but you can follow me on Instagram at Creed Porter, and then you'll get updates there. And then also you can follow me on my business page. We're trying to launch February. It's at Holistic Meds. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no problem, man. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Out of the Blank podcast, and stay tuned for our next episode.